Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla and let's go over everything and what we can expect moving into this week. I also got a new mic. It's my girlfriend's mic. So hopefully this one doesn't have that buzzing sound in the background, but let me know down below in the comments, of course. But yeah, let's jump into it. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, updates, etc. Well, again, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day the market is open, as the market is trading. So definitely check that out. Constant posts, updates, etc. Throughout the entire trading day for just $3 a month US. You get access to the Tesla tier, Tesla options flow, technical analysis, constant updates as the market is trading every day in the YouTube membership. Tier 2 for $5 a month adds NVDA to that if you're interested. And then tier 3 for $7 US a month gives you access to obviously both of those, plus non-Tesla, non-NVIDIA stocks. Like today, for instance, I shared Shopify, which is actually already up pretty nicely. So nonetheless, definitely check it out. But jumping into Tesla, closing the day down only about 1%. And I say the word only because it was down about 3% at the lowest point of the day. So, that's, a decent recovery, obviously, barely just absolutely scraping by, holding on to that rising channel. But unfortunately, there are some concerning signs here, and I'll go over them obviously right now. So where do we want to start? Let's start off on the daily. We'll start off with the daily. So the daily, like I said, some nice buying pressure came in the second half of the day, right? Which is obviously good. But the issue is this. Unless we get a very nice gap up to start off tomorrow, and I mean like a nice gap up. I don't mean like a small gap up. I mean like a good gap up, like at least at 344 or higher minimum, right? There is concern. And the concern is the fact that, don't forget, this is a rising channel. The fact that we did still barely close within it is a potentially good sign. It's, not too bad just yet, because don't forget, we have other bad signs we went over on Friday, right? We lost 350s, we lost the 8 exponential moving average, we have that bearish divergence on the daily that's been there for quite some time now, right? We have all these factors, but this was potentially another factor to add, but it's right on the edge of it, right? So in other words, what this means is the fact that, again, we need a gap up to start off tomorrow. That's important to maintain this, and the reason for that is because, again, it's a rising channel and it's a fairly steep rising channel. So even if we don't rise up fast enough with how steep the channel is essentially, and let's say we kind of go sideways, for instance, well, just by virtue of going sideways, we'll just slowly fall out of the channel just off of that alone, right? So just keep that in mind. You don't have to necessarily go down to fall out of the channel. You just don't go up as much anymore, if that makes sense, right? So that's why I say a gap up is pretty important. But again, the reason I'm a little bit skeptical, and I'll go over more of it on the 1 hour chart, is because, again, we lost the 8 EMA. We arguably treated it as a resistance today. The 350 is a resistance. There's a lot of problems there. We have, again, the bearish divergence. The MACD, you can see, is also just heading its way lower slowly. Despite this move up to the upside, it's been also just slowly making its way to the downside, right? So there's, getting close to bearish crossover here. Again, my MACD settings are specific. They're not the standard settings, but nonetheless, right? So I'm seeing all these signs, and it's like, it's not over yet. Like, I don't want to make it sound like the bulls lost their chance. It's all over, but they really need to start coming in. Honestly, ideally tomorrow, latest by Wednesday, I would guess, honestly. So they really need to start coming into this stock right now. But this needs to get pushed up faster and sooner, right? Or else, yeah, it's going to start looking more and more, not as good, at least short term. Again, like I said many times over, right? I still think the overall look for Tesla here, I actually still don't think is bad. But when I say overall, that implies, many weeks forward. So we can go all the way down to 300. And I still think overall, it actually looks pretty damn good, right? So just keep that in mind, right? That's what I mean by overall, not just like the next few days. I mean like overall, like the next month or 2 or maybe even 3 or 4, right? Because like, again, if we do make our way to the downside like this, which is a potential option, I mentioned this before, but it would essentially be, kind of like a cup and handle pattern, or even just, whatever, just a massive little bull flag like this, whichever the case may be, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it results in the same thing. But ultimately, if we make our way down on like this kind of larger kind of bull flag situation like this, right? Or as part of that cup, whatever. The point is the fact that I want this liquidity to eventually be retested, and I think it'll be eventually retested. Maybe it'll happen quick. Maybe it'll be a massive sell the news event coming up with the robotaxi stuff, or maybe we take longer than usual. Maybe we wait until July. I don't know, but I'm pretty confident that at some point or another, we most likely will come back down to about this 300-ish range to retest this massive liquidity zone that we finally broke out of without getting a true retest. Kind of like when I go on the weekly, when we had this situation, if you ignore everything all the way over here, remember how in the weekly we had this situation here where we just kept getting this rejection over and over and over, and then we finally broke out of it. Then we never came back to retest it. And I remember being up here saying how, we should most likely retest this zone. We spent so long getting rejected by this zone that it's just weird if we don't come back to retest it. That's very rare that it doesn't happen. And then we eventually did. Obviously, we went even below it, but nonetheless, the point is we still came back to that zone. Exact same scenario, literally the exact same situation here, just smaller, of course. But again, same thing, right? Just on the daily time frame. So that's kind of what I see. But again, I want to make it clear, even if Tesla does this situation, yeah, short term will be bearish, short term will be pain, of course. But I actually would view this setup as a very, very bullish setup, extremely bullish, actually, I would even argue, into this very massive bull flag, very beautiful situation. If I bring out the fibs, let's see if the fibs even connect with this. Yeah, even the fibs connect with this. That's the 0.5 Fibonacci level right around there. Worst case, 280 with that 618. But nonetheless, I would view this general zone right around here as a very bullish zone to accumulate, or for fresh bulls to step in, and et cetera, et cetera. And then from here, it'll just be nothing more than a very large bull flag into a massive breakout, in my opinion, decently higher, potentially back into the 400s. But again, if this is the path that we do go down, ultimately, it will take time. It will absolutely take some time for it to play out. So just keep that in mind. But that's kind of just thinking into the future and assuming that this situation ends up actually playing out, right? So let's see how it actually goes, guys, right? Again, I'm not saying this is 100% going to happen. I don't know. There's nothing suggesting it yet, but I'm just kind of trying to think a little bit more ahead here as to what the potential could be, right? What we could be setting up, right? Speaking of what we could be setting up, going over back to the 1 hour chart, right? And this is where we like to sometimes zoom in to get a bit more information as to what the hell is actually going on. For instance, this morning, right? It's 5 hours ago, pretty much as the market opened, I mentioned to my members, I'll just go here. I mentioned to my members how Tesla 1 hour, again, this was pretty much within the first like 30 minutes. You can see how far price has went below the 8 exponential moving average here, the green line, right into a support zone. I'd expect us to play out what I drew roughly next as we reset the 1 hour time frame. There was other posts around that, so this wasn't the only post, obviously. There was more posts around that post, up and below that and above that, right, that I posted as well with more data. But nonetheless, right, this is what I mentioned to my members pretty much in the morning, and you can see it's pretty much playing out almost exactly like that. I didn't change any line. This is literally the exact same line that you see in the post from pretty much like 10 a.m. or something like that this morning. Exact same situation, and this is still what I see so far playing out, where we ended up getting a pretty weak open. I actually ended up exiting my position pretty nicely, actually, I would even argue. I'm very happy about the exit, almost right at open as we came into this 347, 346-ish zone. It didn't seem like it was going to break through it. It didn't seem very confident, inspiring to me, so I ended up exiting, re-entered. And again, I know this sounds like, oh my God, he's timing the market perfectly. No, not every trade of mine goes like this. It's just, yeah, this one happens to go very, very well. Of course, it doesn't go like this well every single time, but I did end up buying up pretty much right around, I have it written down, I think it was 336 is when I re-entered the shares with only half the amount of shares, because I do view this as a bit more risky personally. But nonetheless, right, I did re-enter near the bottom, not at the bottom, but near the bottom, right? Very nice trade. And why? Because we're at a major support level. Despite, the daily looking a little bit questionable, we still came down into support area that we've bounced off of several times before, which I still expect to hold for now, especially considering how when we sold off, if you see off to the screenshot, we were really far away even from that 8 exponential 1 hour moving average, right? So, it told me the fact that there's probably limited downside and there should be some, move back to the upside at the very least to the 8 exponential moving average, which is exactly what we did. We're pretty much right at it right now, but it wouldn't surprise me to make a move a little bit higher if we go back to that 21 exponential moving average on the 1 hour time frame. But ultimately, to essentially make this kind of move that will eventually just end up setting what would look to be roughly the right shoulder of this head and shoulders bearish pattern into just a break to the downside after that. This is kind of what I foresee happening right now, unless, of course, and this is a big unless or a big if, the stock has a very, very large, very quick recovery by Wednesday. If the stock can get a very nice push up, ideally back above the low 350s, so 350 to 352, this would definitely make me rethink this overall thesis, right? But until that happens, I want to go ahead and play with what I foresee as of right now. And because we're making constant lower lows and lower highs on the 1 hour time frame, this is a concerning view to me. And I just view this as simply nothing more than just a dead cat bounce into a continuation lower. If we take the Fibonacci's from here to here, roughly, you can see the Fibonacci's right into that sweet spot right there as well. So again, this is just my perspective. This is what I foresee happening. This is what I expect to happen as, personally speaking, again, unless proven otherwise, which in this case would be essentially a break back above and hold, more importantly, a hold above this level around here, closer to about, honestly, 352 will make me even more confident about it. But 350 to 352 is the level right around here. If we can break above that and do this instead, that'll be very bullish. But until proven otherwise, this to me looks a little bit bearish right now. This just looks like a dead cat. And it looks like to me that we'll just come back up into this kind of supply zone and then most likely get rejected. Most likely get our move to the downside. Again, this is also just combining the fact that the daily to me does feel like it's losing some momentum. But again, I would love to be wrong. I'm actually long the stock right now, believe it or not, despite me being pretty bearish, right? Even on my trading situation, right? Long term, I'm obviously long the stock. I have a long term portfolio, but short term, yeah, I am long the stock even short term, right? Because of that situation I just mentioned with the stop loss pretty much at break even, so it's pretty much a guaranteed trade at this point for me. Because yeah, the daily looks bearish, right? The daily does look bearish in my opinion. The daily, okay, I wouldn't say it looks bearish. It doesn't look bearish, but it doesn't look very bullish either. It looks like, it could turn pretty bearish short term, right? Off of those things I mentioned earlier. So, let's see how that plays out ultimately, right? But let's not forget also the fact that the weekly time frame did close with a very bearish looking candle last week, right? That's very concerning. So if this week closes red, that would be pretty bad. That would definitely give this very bearish looking weekly candle last week more weight to it, in a sense of it's probably not going to be looking too good for the next few weeks. There is a potential that this is going to be a massive sell the news event, right? That's not something I'm completely ignoring, right? I'm not completely ignoring that. But again, 350, 352 to me is the key level right now. Below that, I think bears have a huge advantage, I'll be completely honest. But we have to break above that sooner than later, or else we'll just naturally fall out of this rising channel probably tomorrow or Wednesday. So yeah, anyways, that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.